Hi, my name is Patrick. This video is regarding 3 mistakes the students do while writing the NMAT exam. Okay, so NMAT exam is a little different from the other exams. You need to be very careful. It's not that you get a question right, you will get that many marks. It's a scale score. For example, the first question that you do wrong in quant, if you get all the questions correct, you get 120 marks. But the moment you do one question wrong, you straight away go to 110 or even lower it. It's not that you get same marks for every question. So it's a little complicated process. They don't disclose how it is. But few rules that you need to follow when you're writing the NMAT exam. So if you look at the NMAT paper, it's an adaptive test. Unlike other exams, adaptive test is where a difficult level of question keeps changing based on how you have solved. If you have solved questions incorrect, then the questions will become easier. If you have solved the questions correct, the questions will become tougher. There are 36 questions per section, so verbal, logic, and quant you need to work on, and it's connected with GMAT, so it's more or less their calculation in terms of getting the marks. So one mistake that people do when they try to go for the exam, not all of them, if you all can solve all the questions, fine, but some of them try to solve all the questions. Even if they can't finish the paper, not a right way to do. It's okay. If you can complete the paper in given time frame, good. Try to solve the paper, try to complete the paper. It's a good aspect. But what happens in the process when they try to solve all the questions, sometimes they end up solving difficult questions. And because they end up solving difficult question, in the end, they do not have enough time to solve all the questions. Because they wasted a lot of time on questions. Because they go sequentially, right? Your first question, say it's very tough, you don't get the answer. But you know you cannot come back to a question, because in NMAT, once you go ahead, you can't come back to a question. So you want to solve the question, get the answer, but you don't realize that you wasted a lot of time in that, and because of which your further questions can get a problem. So look at that. Don't try to solve all the questions. If you find a difficult question which you cannot solve, learn to leave. Find out what is the optimum time for you to leave a question becomes important. Because if you don't leave, and if you end up wishing, what happens is you'll have lesser number of proper attempts, which means your marks will be lower. You'll have to guess mark more questions, and that will be lead to lesser number of marks. Second, spending too much time on a question. It's a speed-based exam. Remember NMAT, like unlike CAT, where you can spend more time per question, you have enough time to solve. NMAT, on an average, it is 1 minute per question. Like in verbal section, it is less than 1 minute you get. In quant, you get more than 1 minute, like almost 2 minutes. And logic also slightly more than 1 minute, but around that. So time that you have per question is quite less. So you need to speed up. The moment you start thinking too much or taking more time per question, you will get less time. So don't spend too much time on a question, or any question that takes a longer time, you can leave it. So important to skip difficult questions or questions that you can take a longer time. For example, if I look at RCs, it may take a longer time if the passage is wrong. And if by chance you're not able to complete a paper, it is basically maybe advisable to leave RCs instead of leaving fill in the blanks or something which takes lesser time. So always leave difficult or longer questions as compared to easier questions. So avoid ego issues. You feel, oh, I can solve this question. It's very common, especially in a strong area. You feel logic is a strong area, you come across a puzzle and you want to solve it, but you're not getting the answer. So because of the ego, you tend to spend too much time on a question, which could again be a problem. So be careful of the ego issue as such. Okay. And learn to leave questions that are tough. Mark and move forward. So the moment you find a question tough, mark and move forward. That's how you go. Third mistake that people do is not following a strategy. Don't have a plan in place. They just solve the paper. It is important to follow a strategy. You need to have a plan in place. A plan which happens, how many questions will you solve in a given time frame. Also plan, if your initial plan fails, what would you do? Suppose you take too much time on a question and you see you overshot the time. Is there any way you can modify it? So look at, have a proper plan in place, so follow strategy. You need to understand how many questions you can solve. The first thing that you need to look at is, okay, at 36 questions in verbal or at 36 questions quant, how many questions you can solve in a given time frame. So from that you can identify how many questions you're going to leave and then plan how you're going to leave. Just to give you an example. Suppose there are 36 questions in the examinations and you realize that you're only able to solve, let's say, 27 something on that. So let's say 30 questions. You tend to leave around 6 questions. So approximately every 6 questions you tend to leave 1 question. Approximately. Okay. Not more than that. So every 6 questions, if you find a sum difficult, you can leave a question. And if you want to reduce it, maybe over a period of time, you can change it to every maybe 7 or 8 or 9 questions, you can leave one question. And then try to solve that more questions. So leave out one difficult question. You need to have a plan. Okay. Um, Tend to leave questions that are lengthy or tough. Any question that comes across lengthy, tough, leave it. And know exactly how many or what type of question that you want to leave. It's easier in verbal because you have very clear indication of RCs and fill in the blanks and other type of questions. It's also a little bit easier in logic because logic has question bifurcation like verbal reasoning, puzzle, etc. You can know what type of questions are comfortable, what type you're not, and based on that, you prioritize which type of questions will you solve and which type you will leave. I hope this helps. I mean, this is generally a plan to write an NMAT paper. What mistakes that normally do, you can follow this. But important to do these experiments in the mock so that you understand where you stand and where you're not, and accordingly decide how you need to go forward. Thank you.